Welcome to our monthly crime prevention meeting, where our topic this week is going to be talking about traffic, which is everybody's favorite topic to talk about in the city. And we're fortunate enough to have a lot of you who have shared with us that you would like for us to address some of the ways that RPD deals with traffic, our traffic unit. Some of you have asked about the radar trailer, how we handle different kinds of traffic issues like especially DUIs and accidents across the city. Some of you have asked about questions with cyclists, and some of you have asked about questions about sideshows, which we did dedicate a whole piece to sideshows, so we won't make that the main topic today, but if there are questions around that, we'll answer some of those as well. So I wanted to have an opportunity to turn it over to Sergeant Deschus so that he could talk a little bit about the unit, about what traffic does, and then what he'll do after he kind of hits on some of the main topics, we'll open it up for question and answer. So I'm going to turn it over to you and you can take it away.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. As most of you, I've met a good portion of you guys. My name is Donovan Deschus. I am the sergeant of the traffic unit. A little bit about me, I've been a cop for about 21 years, 17 years here in Richmond, wide array of assignments, and have been involved in traffic here since January of 2020. A little bit about the unit that we have. There's myself, and then there are 4 motor officers. Ideally, there should be about 8 or 9 of us in this unit. With unfortunately staffing and some of the issues we have going on in the department, we've had a hard time keeping some of our units full, but we are trying to continue to bolster up the unit in the department. So what is it that we do? Well, we respond to major injury accidents. We're on call 24/7. So when there was a collision the other day on Sunday at Carlson and I'll say Imperial area, but it was under or right at Highway 80. Even though it's a Sunday and it's a major injury, we're the ones that get called out. But more on a daily basis, what we do is we're out there on our motorcycles. So there's 5 of us that ride motorcycles. And we try to enforce the traffic laws the best that we can in the most problematic areas within the city. Anywhere, up on the hill, down to Central, then obviously down to the southern area, down into the annex. With 4 or 5 of us, it gets a little bit difficult just because of the amount of problem areas we do have. However, I have a list of, I'll say, complaints or issues from the community as to those problem areas, and we try to address them on a daily, if not a weekly basis. And as I'm speaking, I don't like to just speak and do like a monologue or just talk or speak. So if you guys have any questions, please interrupt me at any point in time. I don't want to take an hour of just me speaking. I don't like public speaking as is, so it is what it is. Any questions about that little portion that I just got into right there, or any?
And if everybody can use the raise their hand feature, just so I can call on you if you have ability, because I can't always see everybody on screen. Sorry about that. Sorry, Deschus, okay. I know.
Looks like Gina has a question.
Go ahead, Gina.
Yeah, I do. I live a block from the 80 freeway near Amador, and we had 6 o'clock, like in the afternoon until probably around 7 or 8 at night. People come off the freeway to try to beat the issues of the thing. But the problem that we're having is, like I live on Kern Street, which is a block. They come up on Kern, they go 50 miles an hour on Kern down to get to McBride, to make a left, to get, make it go faster. And that is probably one of the things that really disturbs me, because some people even turn, like I'm on Amador and Kern. No, I'm on, I'm on Esmond and Kern, and people come up on Esmond, there's no stop sign, and they go through. We have almost collisions here. We've had several accidents. We even had bicyclists, that was hit. And I feel like I would like to get a 4-way stop here, because even on Halloween, we've had several Halloweens and people are going 50 miles an hour and kids are walking on the block when it's dark. It really bothers me, because especially that there's been some kids that almost got hit because of the people, they're wearing costumes. They don't see, they're black and that they're not seeing the people. So, we've had some almost thing. We have a lot of Halloween people on Halloween. So there's a lot of complaints in our area on just that alone. People getting off the freeway, speeding down, Kern Street, Sonoma, and Yuba.
All right. So some of the ways that can be addressed, and this is in a lot of the neighborhoods, whether yours or others, is it's an engineering. I'm not going to say I'm not saying it's just an engineering issue, right? But it's stuff that, so I'm on several committees and I have, whether it be weekly or bi-weekly or monthly meetings with groups in the engineering department here in the city. And they have a whole bunch of different projects going on in the city where, Marina Way South, they're making it more advantageous for bicyclists and safer for them. But the way for the community to, and the ones that are the most familiar with these issues, to get it known to the city or the engineering department, is there's a certain link on the engineering website, and requesting, whether it be 4-way stop signs, roundabouts, speed bumps. The only way to really slow people down, it sounds bad to say this, is if they drive too fast, but they go over a speed bump, they're going to mess up their car, and it's going to make them slow down. They aren't going to want to bottom out a car. Lord knows I'm not going to want to do that. So using some sort of, barrier, or we'll say beautification, device, whether it be a roundabout. But the problem with roundabouts, if they're not designed well, is people then use that as something to do donuts and sideshow activities around. So it can be a double-edged sword. So I don't have the link offhand, but it's something that I have. There's a form that
I can drop it in a chat.
Yeah. Do you have that actual form, Michelle?
No, I don't, but I can drop the link in the chat.
Yeah. And then I was going to say, I think I have do a couple of things at once here. I can find that form. I can even email it to you, whether I'll try to find it here in a minute or afterwards, and you can email it to anyone who would like to have this form and send it to the engineering department and explain to them the area that you're speaking of. And then they'll do some sort of analysis, engineering surveys, and see if it's actually applicable or could work there. A 4-way stop sign there, Amador and Esmond, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's a must, if not a signal light, right? I mean, if something. But yeah, that's the way that I would address it. So in terms of us doing enforcement out there, unfortunately for the traffic unit, we work 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So we're usually gone by 6 o'clock. But we do have, and I know there's a couple other questions, and I was going to touch on this in a little bit, but we currently have what's called an Office of Traffic Safety federal grant. And this grant's worth $235,000. And what that targets primarily is alcohol-related offenses. So DUI checkpoints, DUI saturation kind of patrols. But it also, looking at my whiteboard, we have what's called a primary collision factor operations. So we are targeting or looking for individuals who are committing violations which cause the most collisions in our city. So that's speed, like stop sign violations, red light violations, and what we call right-of-way violations, when somebody turns in front of somebody when the person driving straight has a right-of-way. We also have pedestrian and bicycle ops. So we utilize those operations in the evening times, and it's all based on overtime, but the state of California reimburses the city of Richmond. So it's really no money out of our pocket. So we utilize those in problem areas to target issues like you're having. So I wasn't aware of that specific, I may have heard it in the past, so I apologize, but I have it written down now, and that's an area that we can at least focus on or look at on one of our next operations in the future. But I would recommend trying to speak with the engineering department And if you need help with that, I'm more than happy to help you. So.
Okay, and I did know that the state does, if it's related to like the freeway, which this is, they will reimburse the city. So it's just I'm going to be talking. I like the roundabout a little bit. I'm going to tell you why. Like where we are, I wouldn't mind doing the gardening around there or something.
Problem with that, though, you got to think about this. That costs a lot of money just because you.
Sorry, honey. Can you pause for a minute?
Hold on a second. I think somebody is unfortunately got their audio not muted. So if you could mute yourself, thank you. Go ahead.
With the roundabouts, when you have like the foliage and things like that, you got to start. It starts getting a bit pricier for the city because of irrigation, drainage, the watering aspect. So you don't want it to be this beautiful, nice roundabout with just a whole bunch of dead trees and bushes in there. So there's a happy medium.
Thank you, Gina. I see that Sean has been patiently had his hand up for this section. Go ahead, Sean.
Hi. A lot of questions, but regarding what you just shared a moment ago, I'm curious if you can just speak just anecdotally, just based on your own perception of, well, let me back up. So it seems like you don't have nearly as many traffic enforcement officers as you'd ideally like to have, right?
Correct.
So that's been established, but notwithstanding, and that's probably been the case for a while. I'm wondering just in recent years, let's say, in the last few years versus, 5-10 years ago, do you have a sense of whether people are more blatant or bold or whatever? Like, I don't know how to put this. I'm getting a sense from hearing from a lot of residents who say things like, yeah, people just act like they can get away with anything because they know there's no cops around. And I'm wondering if that translates to people just blatantly blowing through stop signs and driving faster, like in recent times than they have before. I don't know, just how you respond to that.
And I'll be very blunt and I'll be very honest. I think starting in 2020, the start of the pandemic, when there weren't as many people on the roadways, and there was a little bit more of a hands-off approach with police in general, just because we didn't know about all of COVID-19 and people were, and currently are, concerned about this, new disease, virus. And people got used to empty streets and empty freeways, and were able to get from point A to point B in a very quick amount of time. Since then, being a police officer might not be as appealing to a lot of people, and with whatever reason it is, a lot of cities, and I'll say a lot because ours as well, but I know a lot of, don't have as many officers as what they used to. So trying to circle it back to, yes, they're being a way more blatant. Individuals who drive, they don't care, or they don't appear to care. They, I won't say don't expect cops to be out there as much, but we don't have as many. But people are much more brazen in terms of what they do. And when they are stopped, and when we do issue citations, it's less than a positive interaction a lot of times, because people feel as though they're kind of emboldened now, and they've kind of got accustomed to people not, so cops not being out and maybe stopping people as much. But even this morning, being out on my bike, I'm on the freeway and I'm going like 75 and flying past me, and I'm wearing a uniform helmet on a motorcycle, police motorcycle, at 95. Someone goes past me in the commute lane by themselves. Well, I'm sorry, but even me being an officer for the years that I have, if I see a cop on the freeway, I'm not blowing past him. Like, that's just something that maybe it's instilled in me because of what I do. I don't know, but I don't know what happened truly. I don't know why it's occurring. But yes, people are much more brazen. And I don't have an answer as to truly why. I wish I did. Staffing's part of it, but I think just kind of the way the world's kind of going right now, I mean, we're kind of in a funk.
It's a hard one to be able to put a finger on that
Yeah.
one, but I do appreciate you for trying to answer that one. That's a tough one, I think, for anybody. I wanted to make sure that Sean, did that answer most of your question, or was there anything that you didn't get answered?
No, I think that was it, but maybe just one very quick follow-up, just in a word or two. Do you believe that more visible, more present, police presence around town would have an effect on that? Or do you think there's something going on where people just don't care?
Yes, I do. Yeah, so yes, I believe more police presence would be effective.
Okay.
Because, and I say it like this, I still, more times than not, when somebody sees me, they turn their music down. I see the brake lights. I see a better stop at a stop sign. Even if I don't do enforcement action. So up at like May Valley, at the corner of Santa Rita and May, it's a four-way stop sign, and it's a lot of kids and parents going up to De Anza High School. The speed limit's 35. You'll have people drive through that stop sign at 60 miles per hour. And I will sit up there and I'll write some tickets, but I will be visible in terms of, so people can see that I'm there, because I'm not there just to write a ticket, but I'm there. It's education as well, but I want to be visible. So people then, in the back of their minds at a later point in time, think about when they go to that intersection, because they've seen a cop, that, hey, maybe a cop's there. And if that's all that slows them down and makes it so they don't go through that intersection and hurt someone who's walking across the street or on a bike, then I've done my job. So just being visible is a huge deterrent. It's not 100%, but it's a huge deterrent. So yes, having more people or more officers visible is 100% beneficial.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Sean. And I wanted to know if you wanted to talk a little bit about, people have asked a lot about the speed radar trailer, how that's used, how that's deployed. Did you want to talk about that?
Sure. So we have one speed radar trailer, which is, we have to charge it. It has to be plugged in to be charged, and it can kind of run on solar for a couple days. It's a little bit old, it's just old. So I'm in the process of trying to get a new one purchased. When that's going to be, I'm not sure. I'm hoping within the next 3 months. How it can get utilized is, I'm sure a lot of you go to community meetings and things like that, and we have liaisons, whether it be lieutenants, officers, sergeants who go to those meetings. Lieutenant Bashan last week sent me an email, asked about, hey, I want to say like somewhere up in Carriage Hills area, some of the community members were asking about the radar trailer, putting it up on Castro Ranch. Absolutely. The only caveat is the fact that it only lasts for a couple of days, just because of the charge, and the batteries, the solar batteries, aren't as powerful as they once were when they were new. So I want people's expectations to be realistic in terms of, number one, what it is or how long it's going to last. What it is it's not something which is going to necessarily gather data and let us know who's speeding, but it's more or less going to be in lieu of us being visible up there. When someone is cruising down the roadway, they see that, the speed limit is 25 and they see their speed of 40 or 45, that slows them down, whether it's prior to a sharp turn, an area where we've had collisions a lot in the past, or in an area where just the community as a whole sees a lot of lawlessness in terms of people, whether they're spinning donuts, doing sideshow activity, or driving in excess of what the speed limit is, or a little bit higher than what the speed limit is, in excess of that. So having a request through, and you can email me or call. I mean, I get probably 15 voicemails a day, so I try to get back to people as quickly as I can, but email is always the best way for people to get in touch with me in terms of requesting, and we'll try to coordinate it. But I do have a pretty lengthy request line or list from a lot of the community. And we try to prioritize it from areas that we have habitual traffic offenders, so to speak, and areas in which are really, I'll say, prolific in terms of lawlessness.
Thank you. And I see that I also have a question about DUIs. Just saying, can you tell us a little bit more about DUIs in the community? Are they on an uptick, and what RPD is doing? And then I see Cordell's hand.
So in terms of DUIs, I'll revert back to, so our our whole OTS grants, or Office of Traffic Safety grants. This is we had one in 19, 20, 2021, 21, 22. So we're going like third or fourth year in a row of having these grants. They primarily are for DUI enforcement. The grant that we had, I want to say last year or the year before, we were blessed with being able to send, I think you ended up sending 16 or 15 officers to what's called SFST and DRE schools. And that's, the standard field sobriety tests class. And that's for getting certified and understanding how to basically do field sobriety tests on people that we believe are intoxicated. So when I wrote the grant, I requested these officers to go to this school for the purpose of trying to bolster our, knowledge, our skills, and our abilities to attack what was becoming a pretty big problem in the city of Richmond. So in 2020, 2021, our DUIs were pretty significant. DUI fatalities, whether single vehicle accidents or collisions where the driver was drunk, but the passenger wasn't, and the passenger ended up dying. There's 3 or 4 that I can think of over the last 2 years that the passenger was the one that perished, unfortunately, not the person who was driving the car. So we have made a very strong effort in terms of getting the officers and sergeants and myself and others trained and up to speed on identifying and then doing the appropriate steps needed in the investigation process for DUIs, so we can get charges filed and have people held accountable. We also have DUI checkpoints. Last year we did 6, or I'll say fiscal year for OTS, it's from October till September. So it's a little bit odd, but we have 9 over this October through September. And we don't get a huge amount of DUIs at our checkpoints. And you can look at that as, I guess, a plus and a minus. It's a positive because maybe people aren't driving as much. We can also be, hey, it's a negative because people are hearing about it and they're avoiding the checkpoints. Either way, we're out there getting education, we're being seen, we're contacting people. We have MAD out there, which is Mothers Against Drunk Driving, getting them involved along with our police commission to let people know the importance of driving sober and keeping people safe by not being intoxicated on the roads. If that answers it, I know it's kind of long-winded.
No, I think that answers that question. So thank you. I also see Cordell's hand up and some stuff in the chat. So go ahead, Cordell, and then we'll go to the questions in the chat.
Yes, can you hear me, Michelle?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so Sergeant Decius, one of the issues that has been brought to my attention is on the corner of McDonald and outside of the 440 building. I have in the past I've seen cars be like speeding along that street, because I've talked to some of the neighbors around there, and they have been complaining about the people speeding along their street. So is there any way possible that there will be a police presence along that street?
McDonald and where? Around 440? So like 27th
outside, outside the 440 building?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have officers there quite often, just for the fact that our communication center is there, and a lot of the officers utilize that for a place for a break or use a restroom. In terms of directed enforcement, the issue is, so there's a law where, like in residential areas, and that's kind of a residential area, I'd have to look at some of the zonings, where you're able to utilize radar, or what's called a LiDAR, and it's a laser and a radar kind of combined, and it's how we utilize, or how we actually check people for speed of, when we're working speed enforcement. I can't say specifically if like someone's going to be out there like on a regular basis, but it's something that I can put on my list of complaint areas and see if we can get some enforcement action there. I do know the area that you're speaking of, because when I ride my bike past there, I usually see you sitting on the steps over there. So I'm familiar with the area, and I'll get some officers out there to see what we can do and see if it continues to be a problem for you guys.
You're muted, Michelle.
Sorry about that. Thank you for reminding me. I'm going to go to some of the questions in the chat. So there was a question of, I'm sure you all have probably heard about some of the car break-ins on Parkway that were on social media, where you kind of see a row of cars where windows were broken out and smashed in at an apartment complex. So there was a question around that. I'm presuming, do we know about it and how we can coordinate? I have a little bit of a piece to add about that with crime-free housing, but Sergeant Disha, did you want to take that on?
I know of what you guys speak. I don't have all the details on it. I'll be honest. I do know that maybe 10 to 11 or 12 vehicles were broken in at one time. Other than that, I don't know investigative wise what's being done with any of our detective bureaus upstairs. And I don't want to speak out of turn, and I don't want to say something that I don't have knowledge on and say something which isn't correct. So other than the fact that I know that it occurred, I don't have any specific knowledge on that. So I'm sorry about that.
And I can speak to the fact that I when I found out about it, I did get an opportunity to talk to patrol. And so we have a program called Crime-Free Multi-Housing, where we work with apartment complexes around the city on improving safety and being proactive and working together. And I believe that particular complex, the Bella Vista a complex, has participated in the past. And so we did reach out to management to invite them to reignite their participation in working closely with us. It's a way for us to share crime prevention information with their residents and help residents kind of get more organized. And if something is starting to come up and become an issue, we can work together before it becomes a larger problem. So that is something that we have done internally to try to coordinate with them. But I think it's incumbent upon, especially if you have a large property like that, is rich in resources, which, you have a lot of cars. And so somebody can come in and do those pretty frequently, that those property owners put in some safety measures to help ensure some more safety for their residents on site. And that's actually what the crime-free program helps to do. So we're hoping that we can coordinate more with them. They did respond back to me in an email earlier this week about trying to set something up. I don't know if that answered that person's question in the chat about that, but I wanted to make sure that we got to that. And there was another question in the chat. It was a follow-up question about what about citizens driving under the influence of marijuana, especially right after hotboxing in our neighborhood and then driving away. So did you want to talk about DUIs under the influence of marijuana?
Yeah, so that's a little bit different than alcohol intoxication. So like the standard field sobriety tests aren't really conducive with someone who's under the influence of, whether it be a narcotic or marijuana. So we have a handful of officers, and I say a handful only because the training is several weeks, along with lab kind of test or lab kind of I'll say testing or training as well, and it's called DRE, so it's drug recognition experts. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 6 in our entire department that are truly qualified to do a DRE test on someone who is smoking marijuana, maybe who was on like a CNS stimulant, which, cocaine, methamphetamine, a depressant like a heroin, things like that, that is able to actually appropriately, legally, lawfully, and accurately perform, excuse me, my radio, perform those kind of exercises on subjects who we believe are driving under the influence of marijuana. getting more people trained, unfortunately, is difficult, just because when we send officers to these week or 2 week trainings and for follow-ups, then there's a trickle down effect, unfortunately, for us right now with backfilling and people getting forced to work. So we're really trying to only send people to trainings that we have to, but when somebody stops someone who they believe is under the influence of some sort of narcotic, if an officer is working who is trained, that's great. If not, then we try to have officers, I don't want to use the word muddle through it, but work through it with the standard field sobriety tests that they're trained on. And then they try to do the best that they can in terms of that investigation, but it's very specific as to what needs to be done for a case to be filed, charged, and then hopefully prosecution in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that question. Looks like we have another question. You guys have a lot of good questions in here. This question says, it said that other cities use retired officers and cadets just to patrol simply as a show of police presence. Can you speak to the liability issues to that question? They may not be able to arrest folks, for example. What about technology, license plate readers, or red camera lights? So I guess it's a two-part question. The first one is about using cadets and retired officers, and then the other one is about like technology.
So the cadet aspect, we don't have many more cadets right now, to be honest. We had two, and we were utilizing them to assist us with our parking enforcement unit, because we got kind of short on that. We have one working there. The good part about the two cadets who are no longer working as cadets is one's in the academy and one's about to go to the academy. So when we utilized the cadets, that was more for, whether it be writing tickets, parking tickets, or taking cold reports. And I say cold reports, like someone's car was broken into or someone's car was stolen, or there's no suspect information, or towing cars, because as a lot of people know, actually, give me 1 second. Sorry. In terms of, so as people know, we have a very big issue in terms of vehicles and blight and abandoned vehicles. So we've utilized our cadets for that, but unfortunately right now we don't have cadets to do that. In terms of retired officers, I don't think that's anything that we've ever explored, and I don't know what the liabilities would be for that. In terms of, we could use reserve officers maybe, or people that are like on, I think it's called 960 or 980, that can come back and work for, like a decreased wage or whatever it might be. But I don't think that we've actually utilized that for any sort of extra patrolling. In relation to, you asked about license plate readers or red light cameras. The city is very adamantly against license plate readers, so we don't have those. And I don't really want to get into that too much. I don't have the answer, other than there's like the city itself, whether it be management or city council, they don't want the police to have license plate readers. And then red light cameras, I think it might be a funding issue, but I don't have an answer for that. We don't have that. We do have CCTV cameras throughout the city, which help us with accident investigations or collision investigations, where we can kind of see when no one's around what actually happened. But in terms of the red light cameras, I don't have an answer as to why we don't have them. And I'm not sure if there's any Fourth Amendment issues anymore about that, because I believe down south or somewhere there have been some issues about some Fourth Amendment or what it might be, or proving who's actually driving while issuing citations and things of that nature.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that one. And going back to the good questions from the chat. I was told today that there are only 45 officers per patrol, and that officers will be asked to work up to 18 hours per day. How is that safe? People need to understand. I know that you can't answer all of that, obviously, and I would not make you answer all that because a lot of those decisions are made by other folks. But I don't know if you want to talk about, just staffing in general.
So I will say this, that we are very low in terms of staffing. So I lateraled here from a different agency in 2005. And in 2005, we were very low. We're pretty close to what we are right now. And we got up to over 200. And I want to say total right now, roughly from the chief on down to the most junior officer, we're somewhere in the 120s. Now that's from chiefs, assistant chiefs, captains, lieutenants, and then down to sergeants. I want to say sergeants and below, we're probably around 100 cops. So sergeant and below, and those are more or less the people that you see on the streets. But when I say that, that also includes people that are injured or long-term sick leave, and detectives who work upstairs. So you're looking at probably 8 to 9 officers on every single team right now. We have 5 teams. So 8 times 5, 40, right? That's, if I remember all my math correctly. You're probably around 45 to 50 cops that are officially assigned to patrol right now. And in terms of the 18-hour days, yes, there are times where we are asked to work an extra amount of hours throughout the day. And that is for a couple of reasons. We don't want to have 5 officers on the street at any given time because it's not safe for them. It's not safe for the community. In terms of being safe for the officers, in terms of working that many hours, every person's different and everyone can handle working long hours or maybe not as many hours. So it's kind of case dependent on how long people work sometimes. But yeah, we are understaffed right now, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't see any more questions in the chat, and I don't see any more hands raised. So were there any final questions? I think you answered most of the other things. Did you want to maybe briefly hit on, I know we've already done a whole piece on sideshows. We might come back to that. So this is not necessarily that conversation, but did you want to hit on any of the information that people may want to know about sideshow activities? Because I know there's been an increase in the city over the last couple of months.
Yeah, so sideshows just in general are becoming problematic, and not just for the city of Richmond, but for surrounding agencies. And a lot of the reasons are, or many of the reasons, or some of the reasons I could say, are police departments and cities have kind of changed the way that they've, and I'll go to like pursuit policies and things like that, where years ago, a lot of agencies had different pursuit policies where they were able to pursue people that drove recklessly or some other, crimes or incidents that now, just for liability reasons and then for the safety predominantly for the community, is we don't pursue or chase certain things. And people that drive reckless, that's one of them. So unfortunately, individuals who partake in this kind of activity kind of have an understanding and a knowledge as to where they can go and what agencies can or cannot actively chase or pursue a vehicle. So with that being said, deterrence is always like the best for us. We try to prevent people from coming in to the city and doing the sideshows. Well, that's really hard to do given the activity level of the city, and then just with 9 or 10 officers in the entire city. So when we do respond to a scene of a sideshow, the biggest thing that we try to do is we try to get a avenue of, we'll say, escape for the participants, whether it be back onto the freeway, and kind of get them out of our town, and not to push them off or pawn them off on a CHP or a different agency, but we're trying to break up the sideshow just because the dangerous nature of it for the drivers, the people that are out looking at it. And then a lot of times you have people that, as they're spinning the donuts, they're shooting off guns, or have in the past, I should say. So deterrence is number one, but then trying to funnel people out of the city and getting them to stop the actual activity, that's, number two. But then trying to do follow-up on if we see cars that are spinning donuts that are doing sideshow stuff, and we're able to get a license plate. There's investigative avenues that we, after the fact, can do, which result in the impounding of that person's vehicle for up to 30 days. So that's kind of how we address it right now. And we can use stop sticks in a way to funnel people certain ways. What you guys, you know what stop sticks are? It's a triangle, say tube, which inside has your plastic barbs that are hollow. So if a car drives over it, the plastic barbs kind of go into the tire, break off, and it's a slow release of air. So if the person's driving at a relatively high speed, it slowly releases the air of the tire, so it slows them down, and then they're able to be hopefully apprehended in the future. So that's kind of the sideshow dilemma right now, but we are well aware that it is a problem, and we're trying to address it as best we can right now.
Thank you for answering that question. And I see a couple hands up. So I see Gina and then Cordell, and then we'll take the last question from the chat. Go ahead, Gina.
Okay, I have actually two different things. One is about the sideshows. I'm asking this question because this happened just actually last night. It was on McBride and Kern. We heard fireworks. And so the first thing, I assumed it was our neighbor. We have a neighbor down there that does that. But then I kind of just stood outside for a while, and then I heard it to my right, the same kind of fireworks. And then two vehicles came down speeding on our street, Esmond, going very fast. Are you seeing stuff like that of cars releasing fireworks from their vehicles?
Not necessarily that I'm seeing. However, I will say this, we're in April, it's almost May.
Right.
So July is coming up. So I would anticipate we're probably going to see a little bit more of it, unfortunately, just because of the 4th of July coming. It's not something that I've seen specifically or have heard of them driving and shooting off fireworks, but it's obviously not out of the realm of possibilities, but I haven't heard of that, like any new trend.
Yeah, it just seemed odd to me that the same fireworks that were shot down there were shot to the right. And then all of a sudden these two guys are, one was a Civic, one was an SUV, speeding down our street.
Are you sure that was fireworks and not something else?
It was fireworks.
Okay.
I know gunfire. I shoot a gun. Right. So, okay.
Yeah.
I know the difference. No, I know the big difference. And then my other question is, we live up here near the freeway. We have a lot of homeless people that roam because they're sleeping on the freeway and that. And this is my comment. If you look at the city of Pinole, they don't have homeless people along the freeway. Why? Because the city has made a rule that there should be no homeless people with Caltrans. So I want Richmond to do the same thing. And this is the reason why. We had an elderly couple. It was in July, not this last July, but July before. They were sleeping above their garage. The homeless people entered in the garage, started a fire. And the reason why they didn't get killed was because of their dogs warned them about the fire. So what I'm trying to say is there is a lot of fires that occur along the freeway. And I know that it's homeless people because I've talked to the fire department about it. Yeah, so I would like to see in Richmond, that the city council makes a rule that we should not have any but homeless people along the freeway. And I thanked the captain in our area. Who was it? The last one, Michelle. He helped us with Caltrans. So from San Pablo Dam to McBride, now there's no more homeless people. Mm-hmm. I've been working with Caltrans on that, and they've been removing those homeless people just because of that occurred. Because the couple still lives in that house. I don't want them to be, they're in a lot of fear right now. They are, because they're living with that nightmare. But I'm going to buy them one camera, so that they can look at it, if the dogs bark and stuff, they could see outside. But I just feel like we're letting, I walk by sometimes and I can see a fire, they're starting a fire along the freeway. They're up there doing the little camp thing. And I know it's part of it's getting warm, but some of it, I do know that they throw stuff on the freeway and start fires on things.
Yeah.
So,
Gina, can I speak to that if that's okay? Because that's me
Yeah.
putting on my other
Yes,
hat.
please.
As
Yeah.
crime prevention manager, and also, kind of working, being assigned to work with some elements of the unhoused community. So we do work with Caltrans. The city has met with Caltrans multiple times to kind of, share some of the concerns they have about the right of ways. Caltrans, has the same challenge as cities do, is that
Right.
there are some case laws and in Richmond City ordinance that says for you to be able to actually remove a homeless encampment with someone who is in a tent, you have to be able to offer them bed space. And what
Mhm.
most people don't know right now is that the Marriott is closing. So all the FEMA and federal funds and stuff that we used to be
Oh,
offering,
no.
is going away, which means that everybody has to go back into shelters, which mean that, there's 100 or so people who are going back into the shelter system, which are now full. So
Right.
that presents a challenge, but Caltrans, the city has been working with Caltrans to get them to develop a cleanup schedule to work on the fire prevention. So, we can definitely take that back to the working group, that the feedback on that. I mean, that's obviously something that's going to be done at the council level. It's not the city's jurisdiction. It's us working with our jurisdictional partners on that. But I just want to make sure that people are aware of that.
Okay, Michelle,
and-
I have a question about the Marriott after you're done.
Okay, and I want to get to some of that, but I also know that we're getting towards the end of time and we have
Okay.
a couple more hands raised. So I will come back to that. I see
Okay.
Cordell and then I see Peter.
Okay. I just remember the other location where I've seen people speeding, and it's really a hot area. So hopefully you'll take notice. On the corner of McDonald and it's right across, right by Valmar liquor store. It's like I have seen people be speeding along McDonald Avenue, and it's like in broad daylight. So you know which one I'm referring to. On the corner of, and then because I've seen it, like people be speeding like intersection, along McDonald Avenue outside Valmont, because I've seen it like constantly, and it's like it's getting worse by the second.
Yes, I'm familiar with that area, and I will take note of that as well. Cordell, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Cordell. And I see Peter's hand is up.
Yes, I'd like to bring it up the situation on Highway 80 and Carlson. On ramp, off ramp, there's a lot of accident almost every week happen on Carlson Boulevard. Just under the freeway overpass, how the Richmond Police Department reduce that thing, not keep happening from now on.
So that's a bad intersection just because. So let me ask you this. Are you referring to when people are trying to get on the freeway or off the freeway?
It happened both. The accident happened both ways. On the Highway 80 on-ramp also happened accident, and the on-ramp from westbound to Highway 80 from Carlson also happening. The accident happened right underneath the overpass.
Right. So that's
There's
something which
over there, yeah.
which the engineering department's actually very aware of. The problem we have with that, because I know that the community down in the annex on the Carlson area down there, they want to get designated turn pockets or designated left-hand turn lanes with designated arrows installed, and they want some work done on the actual on-ramps and off-ramps. The issue that arises is the fact that you have the City of Richmond, but then Caltrans, and they have to come together and kind of collaborate and come to an agreement on that. So the actual turn lanes coming from, so we'll say, you can say northbound and southbound Carlson, and some people say east and west. But when you're going on Carlson and you want to make a left turn and you have to go across traffic onto the freeway for eastbound, the traffic coming the opposite way doesn't stop. So for the city to hopefully at one point have a designated turn pocket or a turn lane with an arrow which turns, green. So when they make that left-hand turn, people come in the opposite direction, stop. That's something which has been brought up. The engineering department is aware of, and myself, and I know that the other officers that work that area that will traffic would be elated to have happened, because as I alluded to earlier in this meeting, was we had a pretty hellacious collision with a motorcycle and a vehicle on Sunday at about 3 p.m. at that same intersection. And it happens when people don't know who has the right of way. And when both directions of travel on Carlson both have a green circle, some people don't know if they can actually turn left in front of or not. So it's something that we are aware of. It's something that we monitor and we work there. I mean, Officer Middleton, who I think's watching us right now, works that area quite often. He's one of the gentlemen that is in the traffic unit, and he works that area often because there's a lot of blind spots that you just can't see when you're coming off the freeway, turning left or turning right. People go through red lights. So we try to do as much enforcement there as we can. But engineering is going to be probably one of the biggest ways to solve that problem. And it's not falling upon deaf ears. It's unfortunately just one of the many areas that needs to be addressed. But it is a very dangerous spot. So.
Thank you for that one. And I wanted to make sure that we did get to a quick question in the chat about the RPD speed at richmondpd.net. Do we know that if that particular email is still a good email for people to send and report to? It's in the chat.
Yeah, so I actually, I responded to, I want to say it was Elaine.
Oh,
yes.
okay, you already responded.
Yeah,
to that.
we actually,
Okay, yes.
we still get those emails, and we share them. If it's not shared with the district or the beat officers, we'll share those, just because we need as much help as we can from the beat officers and the officers that are working the streets to help us with what our mission is and what our goal is. But yeah, those emails do still work, so you can send it, to PD beat 8 officers or the RPD stop speed at richmondpd.net as well. But they are still active and they are still monitored.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
so much.
The last question that was presented was, and Gina just finishing up her question around the Marriott. For those who don't know, so during the early stages of the pandemic for the unhoused population, there was support from FEMA and from the state to be able to provide hotel and motel stays for people who were in the shelters that were congregate, which we had to separate people out, right? Because you cannot have people in a congregate shelter with COVID. And also for folks who were coming in from off the street in the early days. What happened though is that those shelters and that hotel got filled up very quickly. And so, but we still had it as a resource through the county. The city doesn't run it, it's county run. We were informed by the county that the Marriott actually will, convert back to a conventional hotel and motel in June. And so they've stopped taking folks into that program over there and started transitioning them to other programs. But people who are unable to transition out to Home Key or other programs long-term, because there was some funding from the state to help transition people, will have to go into our shelter system. And as you guys know, the shelter system is extremely impacted right now to the point where, at least for the next, month or so, it's going to be difficult to get people into shelter. The one recourse that we do have is the Richmond Rescue Mission is getting ready to open up their new project. It's 113 beds. For those of you who are involved in the city's task force on homelessness, we are actually going to go and take a tour of that tomorrow at 12 noon. And, people will get a chance to kind of see that project once it opens up. It's privately run. It's not run by the county. They base theirs on charitable contributions. but that will be available to be able to offer people respite and space. But until then, it's going to be kind of tough going. And so what our laws say, basically, and our ordinance says, is if somebody's in a tent, like I mentioned to Gina, you have to be able to offer them a bed. Doesn't necessarily apply to RVs, but we do try to practically provide that opportunity to people through our core team. Our core homeless outreach team goes and makes contact, and core does a great job, but they also have to have something to connect people to. And so that is a struggle that we're facing, not just in Richmond, and we're facing it countywide. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear to people. And I don't know, Gina, if that answered, the rest of your question.
I just want to, because, I'm on the commission, and I'm going to bring that up, because we're talking about homelessness too. And this is unacceptable. They need to have something to fix that problem, not just shut it down and have nothing. I'm a little bit upset by that. Sorry. I'm upset because there's a lot of people that were in that hotel that had mental illness and that, and I just feel like now they're going to be back on the street again. There is a transition to have to, they get used to living in a house, and now they're back on the street again. It's hard to get them off the street sometimes.
Yeah, and what I understand about the county's plan is that they weren't going to try to put people directly back on the street. They were going to try to put them into shelter. But obviously not everybody is going to want to stay in shelter. So yeah. It's a challenging piece, and we have to work at it from a state level and from a local level. I know you guys have heard about Gavin Newsom and care courts.
Yes, we're talking about that now in the commission.
Yeah, and some of the work about, trying to get those who are most kind of like severely impacted by mental illness support. So I think that these are all things that unfortunately kind of come and get dropped at law enforcement's doorstep. We don't always have the right tools to handle it. So we have to really work together and partner as a community if we want to impact some of these issues. And so I know a lot of you all work on those things as well, but I thank you, Gina, for your thoughtfulness around that, because I think that, we do need to have something different happen there. Absolutely.
And then I would like to join your group with the homelessness thing too, because I'm going to also, there's another commission that meets for homelessness. I'm going to start attending that one. Just because I do have a very big concern. There's a lot of people. The thing I'm concerned about is the elderly people that are homeless, which are quite a few. Yeah, I visit the camps. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, most of the folks that you see are elderly or disabled. If you take a look at the stats, so you see a high level.
I know. I'm aware. Yeah, and we're working just on the council. We are working with the commission's working on stuff like that. I just want to tell you that. Okay.
Thanks, Gina. I appreciate that.
Sure.
And it looks like we're at the end of our time. I want to turn it over to Al and Karla to say goodbye, and thank you all for participating. And we will make sure that this is taped.
I had an announcement.
Cordell, okay, Cordell, go ahead with your announcement.
Yes, so you are cordially invited to the Richmond Rotary Club weekly meeting on May 6th at 12:30 p.m. at the Richmond Country Club. Our guest speakers is going to be the city manager's office will give us an overview on economic development initiatives. So tickets are only $25, and that includes lunch too. So there will be some refreshments and all that good stuff. So that's it.
Thanks, Cordell. And I'm going to turn it over to our Crime Prevention Board.
Hi there. This is Karla Perez. I'm sorry, I'm just getting off the bar here. Just wanted to thank everybody for coming out. Sergeant Davis always do wonderful work for us. Thank you. Michelle, same to you. You're a wonderful person to have on our side. Again, if you guys ever have a topic that you want to discuss with us, please, by all means, email Michelle and or me at, so that we can get those topics going for the following month and schedule a speaker. Other than that, you guys have a great night, and thank you all for coming out.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Have a great night and be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.